Excision.
Excision is a proper horror movie. You don't get many proper horror movies now. You get kind of teeny horror movies and you get kind of mainstream horror movies, but you don't actually
what do you mean by proper horror
out
movie?
and out body horror shocker stuff.
Properly horrible.
Properly horrible.
Properly horrible stuff. So basically you've got this maladjusted, alienated teenager, brilliantly played by Anna Lynn McCord, who in real life is a very good-looking girl, often seen on the red carpet in other films, but in this case, defiantly ugly, and scabs on her face, cold sores on her lips, will not do anything with her hair, will not conform in any way to kind of normal social behaviour. She dreams of being a surgeon, but she's reduced to slicing open dead birds she finds on the pavement. But she has these vengeful, eroticised, clinical fantasies which form a very large part of her life. And she's moving towards the idea of, almost as if that fantasy is becoming her reality, and she's losing the sense of the difference between the two of them. Her mum, ironically, who's rather prudish, is played by Tracy Lords, who used to be in porn movies, who's excellent as a kind of ultra-religious, controlling mother, who actually does really care about her daughter, but is more about controlling her than actually loving her. A bunch of people turn up. John Waters turns up as a guy who is both her priest and her shrink, which is an interesting combo. I'd be running a mile from that for a start. There's the usual kind of popular Uber babe, Natalie, who is a kind of nemesis anyway, and she's constantly railing against the sort of capricious god. She actually turns up at church and says, "Why are you doing this to me? Why is my sister suffering from cystic fibrosis, which may involve her having a lung transplant, and why is you allowing her to suffer in this way?" So you've got this extraordinary story, and at its best, it's kind of reminiscent of something like Ginger Snaps, where you have this girl whose kind of menstrual cycle turns her into a werewolf. So there's kind of this hint of that somewhere. There's quite a bit of Heathers. There's a lot of sort of Cronenbergian body horror. There's a little bit of that kind of Lynchian suburban weirdness, but it doesn't really quite fit together. So the kind of the fantastical stuff, the really gruey body horror stuff, I absolutely loved, and I quite liked the sort of suburban stuff, the rather arch portrayal of this suburban society that she's part of, that she's rebelling against. But I couldn't quite see how the writer-director Richard Bates, this is his first film to be fair, he had never quite managed to make those two things mesh.
I thought it was a completely empty experience. I thought this guy is taking, right, I'm going to go a little bit of, a little bit of Donnie Darko, a little bit of David Cronenberg, a little bit of Tarantino, and John Waters I'm going to get in to do a cool cameo. Malcolm McDowell I'll throw in. It's Malcolm McDowell Week is in another film later on. None of it. I didn't care about anyone. And even though the central character is really well played, as Nigel says, she's annoying, she's irritating. I didn't care about her obsession with surgery and all of that. And it didn't scare me at all. So even though it's properly horrific, it didn't scare me for 1 minute. It doesn't really try and bother scaring you. It just is horrible. It's nasty and horrible. I didn't like it at all.
You didn't like it?
No.
Okay. Right.
Not for 1 minute.
Not for 1 minute?
No.
Okay.
I thought it was a totally empty experience.
Right.
I think gathered from all these different influences, but there was nothing there. There's nothing to it at all.